Hey guys, Lolio here, and today we're going to be talking about the best raid bosses in all of World of Warcraft. The bosses on this list are ranked by a combination of factors, including difficulty, visuals, and memorability. Note that this list is all just my opinion, so feel free to disagree. Number 10. Omnitron Defense System, 10-player Heroic. As the first Council boss fight in Cataclysm, Omnitron was well received for being innovative and different compared to previous multi-boss encounters. The interaction of the various boss abilities with each other made it fairly complex and challenging, and almost every council fight since Omnitron has been influenced by it in some way, most notably the Stone Guard and Paragons of the Galaxy. Number 9. Illidan Stormrage. As the advertised final boss of the Burning Crusade, people expected something pretty epic from Illidan's fight, and overall, Blizzard did a pretty good job. While Illidan's storyline was handled pretty poorly after Warcraft 3, the encounter in Black Temple is mechanically and visually interesting. Approaching him at the peak of the temple, seeing Azeroth in the sky, and of course hearing his famous catchphrase,
2, 1.
You are not prepared.
Makes it a pretty exciting moment. With appearances from well-known NPCs like Akama and Maiev, you really get a sense that this is a very important situation. While most people who solo it today don't get to see all the phases, at the time it was quite difficult, with the Metamorphosis phase being particularly cool. Lore-wise, killing off Illidan sucked, but in-game, it feels pretty nice.
Finished. You are beaten.
You have won, Maiev. But the Huntress is nothing without the hunt. You are nothing without me.
And rage guide your blows.
A thousand faces. Cower before my true form. Bow down before the god of death.
Number 8. Yogg-Saron 25-player, Alone in the Darkness. Ulduar is widely regarded as the best raid of all time, and as the final boss, it makes sense that Yogg-Saron would appear on this list. The varying difficulty options made it more interesting, but it's the Alone in the Darkness version that was truly great. The insanity mechanic was fresh and interesting, and really gave you a sense of how the old gods could corrupt and manipulate anybody. Phase 1's transition to Phase 2 is one of the creepier moments in WoW, with players figuring out that Serra is just another form of Yogg-Saron. The different vision phases all show key moments in WoW lore, which is really cool. These days, most difficult bosses are killed within a few weeks of release, but Alone in the Darkness wasn't accomplished until nearly 3 months after Ulduar was released, and was very challenging for most groups until the release of Cataclysm.
Let the games begin.
Number 7. Nefarian in Blackwing Lair. Blackwing Lair is described as being the first genuinely difficult vanilla raid. It's where mechanics really started coming into their own. Nefarian was regarded as the hardest boss of the time, and was certainly one that tested endurance, with average attempts taking from 20 to 30 minutes. He had 3 distinct phases, one of which was in his human form, which is actually pretty unique among dragon bosses. It's Nefarian's personality that really helps make him memorable. And the reason he's on this list is primarily due to one unforgettable mechanic that people always bring up, which is the class calls. Every so often, Nefarian would affect all members of a certain class with an ability, which would do different things depending on the class. For example, for druids, he forced them into cat form for a while, paladins would end up casting Blessing of Protection on Nef, and hunters, well, they'd have their ranged weapon broken. And that last one was definitely the worst class call and kinda sucked, but the rest of them were truly awesome.
Nothing to my kind. Do you hear?
Wonderful! Positively marvelous results! Hull integrity 98.9%! Barely in debt, moving right along!
Number 6. Mimiron, 25-player firefighter. Mimiron's boss fight uses a lot of mechanical devices, so it's somewhat fitting that it would have some of the most interesting mechanics of any encounter. While the normal mode version was pretty fun, the firefighter hard mode, activated by pressing a big red button, made it considerably more hectic. All 4 phases were pretty interesting, with the last one involving mechanics from the previous 3, making it the most challenging. Visually, this fight received several unique mechanical models, but your appreciation of these depends on if you like the Titan engineering aesthetic, which personally I love, but not everyone's a fan of. Plus, how often do you get to see a gnome raid boss? Mimiron embodies the absolute best of Ulduar, with several phases, a unique card mode, and unique models.
Gaze upon its magnificence! Bask in its glorious... glory!
Welcome to the future. A pity you're too late to stop it. No one can stop me now.
Number 5. Kael'thas Sunstrider. Kael'thas holds the distinction of being one of the few raid bosses who was not killed before the next tier of content was released. Black Temple was released on May 22, 2007, when the world's first Kael'thas kill didn't occur until May 25th. With 5 phases, legendary weapons, and potentially dropping one of the most loved and sought after mounts in the game, Ashes of Alar, Kael'thas was an absolutely incredible fight at the time. Like Illidan, his turn from hero to villain wasn't handled very well in game, but the boss encounter more than makes up for it. His excellent voice acting also contributes to the epic feeling. You can practically feel his desperation growing throughout the fight, which culminates during Phase 5.
I have not come this far to be stopped. The future I have planned will not be jeopardized. Now you will taste true power.
Even though he goes down very quickly these days, due to the invulnerable RP moments, you can actually still get a feel for some of the mechanics of the encounter.
I am Shen, Slayer of kings and gods. You have made a grave mistake.
Number 4. Shen, 25-player heroic. Throne of Thunder is a fairly polarizing raid, with some criticizing bosses like Darumu and Dark Animus, while others love them. One boss that pretty much everyone agrees was great though, is Shen. The Thunder King had a great build-up in the story. He was mentioned in quite a few quests in 5.0, and then 5.2 developed his character a bit more. Unlike many other WoW villains, Shen wasn't corrupted or even evil. He didn't want to destroy the world, he just sought to conquer and control Pandaria. The boss fight itself had some interesting and variable mechanics, allowing people to choose how they wanted to deal with certain abilities. Visually, Shen received an awesome new model, and quite a few new spell effects were created just for his encounter. Shen was a very climactic boss fight, and while his story was fairly self-contained and created just to exist within Pandaria, it was handled very well.
I sought only to finish the work of the gods.
Begone from my realm, insects!
Number 3. Ragnaros, 25-player heroic. During Cataclysm, Blizzard wanted to capitalize on a lot of WoW nostalgia, remaking the old world, featuring old characters like Nefarian, Onyxia, and Ragnaros, made players believe that this was kind of a throwback and a successor to vanilla. While this made some people view Ragnaros being the last boss of Firelands as somewhat of a rehash, anyone who actually did the fight at the time realizes how absolutely untrue that was. Heroic Rag was considered one of the best and most challenging fights of the time, and almost invariably the best boss of Cataclysm. Incorporating a few of his old abilities like the Sons of Flame was a nice touch, but it certainly doesn't mean it was a rehash. And the best and most famous part of the fight is totally new, and it was the final phase where he gets up and he grows a pair of legs.
5, 4, 3, 2, soon. I've come too soon.
Number 2. Siegecrafter Blackfuse, 10-player heroic. Blackfuse combines traits of some of the absolute best bosses to make a challenging but intensely strategic boss fight. Superficially, with all the mechanical elements, he resembles Mimiron, but his mechanics have a lot of similarity with Shen. Like the Thunder King, you were able to adjust the strategy to suit your guild's strengths and weaknesses, and change which mechanics you want to deal with. Even with this added flexibility, Siegecrafter is considered to be one of the most difficult fights on Heroic, often taking hundreds of attempts due to the sheer amount of things going on. Unique mechanics like the conveyor belts were not only interesting due to the novelty involved, but because they incorporated elements of the environment into the encounter, which adds to immersion. Blackfuse wasn't an established lore character before this, but at the end of the fight, he says his legacy will live on, referring to the Iron Horde and Warlords of Draenor. Personally, I hope that his legacy lives on in the minds of encounter designers as well, so they can continue making great fights like this one. Before we reveal the absolute best fight in WoW, let's cover some honorable mentions.
You are already dead.
Your actions are illogical. All possible results for this encounter have been calculated. The Pantheon will receive the Observer's message regardless of outcome. Stars, come to my aid.
Behold the tools of creation.
Number 1. The Lich King, Heroic 25 player. You probably expected this one, but it's not without good reason. The entire Wrath of the Lich King expansion is usually considered to be the best one, and it's where WoW reached its peak of 12 million subscribers. Arthas was a fight people had been waiting for since Warcraft 3, and the build-up over the course of the expansion was intense. Unlike Illidan, you actually saw the Lich King regularly during questing, and felt a personal connection to him. Yeah, maybe he was overused and became a little bit cartoonish at times, but for the most part, he felt like a big threat. The final fight of the expansion, taking place on the Frozen Throne, is the most climactic and epic moment in WoW. Mechanically, there were quite a few interesting abilities, especially Necrotic Plague and Defile, which became so iconic that they're now level 100 talents for Death Knights. Moments like being carried off the edge by a Valkyr or being sucked into Frostmourne are super memorable. The Lich King encounter started with the most known character in the Warcraft series, and delivered exceptionally well on the premise, the theme, the flavor, and the difficulty of the fight, with no guild being able to down 25-player Heroic Lich King until the 5% buff came into play.
These servants have fallen before your relentless onslaught. Your unrivaled fury.
And that concludes the list of the top 10 bosses in World of Warcraft. What do you guys think? Do you agree, disagree, were some left out, some on there you didn't think would be included? I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Anyway, that's all from me for now. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.